Good morning. We're going to begin now a Sichah, a Chanukah Sichah printed in Chelik Tezvav. This is, of course, part of the project of Likkutei Sichos, and it's Parshas Vayeshev, and it's a Chanukah Sichah. It's interesting. This week, usually we have two Sichas, but this week, I guess with the project, it's only one. So let's begin. Vayeshev Dalet Chanukah Aleph. In a Pirush from Pasuk V'Habor Reik Ein Bo Yimayim, this week's parsha, it says about the pit that they threw Yosef in, the brothers threw Yosef in. So the pasuk says V'Habor Reik, that the pit was empty. Ein Bo Yimayim, there was no water there. So in Gemara, we find in the Gemara in the Shabbos, the Avchav Beis, the Gemara says that in the sugya from Chanukah, this is the sugya of Chanukah. So the Gemara says, "V'amar of Kana Darshan, of Nosson Bar Minyomi, Shmeid Rav Tanchum, of Kana Darshans." Kana says that Darsh of Nosson Bar Minyomi, he darshaned in the name of Rabbi Tanchum. Ma'adiksiv. He says, "What's this pasuk? What does it mean? V'abor reik ein by mayim? What does it mean that the pit was empty and there was no water?" Obviously, Imash Moshemer V'abor reik any dish ein by mayim. If the Torah says that the pit was empty, so why does the Torah have to say, and there was no water there? It's obvious. So why does the Torah say there was no water? To tell us that there was no water there. Where there were snakes and scorpions in the pit. That's what the Gemara says. The Pashtus is thus was the Gemara break the drasha if V'Habor Reik Gleimer. This that the Gemara in the Sugi of Chanukah brings, Sugi of the Chanukah, brings this whole drasha of Aborek in my mind. In the sugi from Chanukah, the far about the drasha is the zakvar from Zelbam and the Omar was hat gezak the friedige drasha. Omar of Kana, daughter of Nasser, by many members made of Tanchum, Nershal Chanukah. So the Gemara brought down the memra which said the halachas of Nershal Chanukah, and it's very common in Gemara that once you bring the name and a din of that person, so you'll bring other things that he said, even though it's off topic. So, the Pashas, that's the connection. They both said in Darash of Nosson Bar Minyomi in the name of Tanchum, Aber v'genet shein fil mol, in Yeder Inyan and Teda v'tachlis Sadiq. So, the Rebbe says, we spoke about many times, is Yeder Inyan and Teda v'tachlis Sadiq. Everything is the ultimate precise. Therefore, when the Gemara brings that drasha in a gewisse sugya, when the Gemara brings a drasha in a specific sugya, it says nit no slip as Zaydik Inyan, the Zelba Baal Memra. So it's not only just because it's the same Baal Memra, so we're going to bring it as well. They're far, while the drasha that taken dike shaykh to the sugya and welche zivert gebracht. It's because the memra or the halacha that's being said by this man Omar has a very specific connection and a teichen connection to the sugya that we're discussing. Weiter, der Fund ist verstanden being and therefore is understood in our concept. Es ist da Ashayches and Teichen zwischen der Memra Hanal with the Inyan for Chanukah. So there's a connection between this that we said about Borek and by Mayim to Chanukah. Befrat leiten them was the Shalosh steht in only von unser Parsha, especially what the Shalosh says. There's not going to be any more. I took there's more? Because I took both of them. Oh, okay. Yeah, I posted it. I posted on the group. You can look on Kedusha. But Friday there, them was the Shalosh Steib in Ani from Unzer Parsha, especially what the Shalosh says in regards to our Parsha, as the Parsha is Vayeshev Miketz, the Shalosh writes clearly that the Parshas of Parshas Vayeshev and Miketz and Yigash all have a connection to Chanukah. When the pasuk of Aborek in my mind steht doch in Parshas Vayeshev. So the pasuk of Aborek in my mind is said in Parshas Vayeshev. The Shalah tells us the Vayeshev has a special connection to Chanukah. So the pasuk of Aborek in my mind for sure has this connection to Chanukah. Befrat that it's in the sugya of Chanukah. Base. Chazal tell us Ein Mayim Ela Teda. Famous thing that when we say water, true water refers only to Teda. Many times in Tanya it's brought down that the water comes from, why is Torah compared to water? Because just like water comes from a very high place and goes to a low place, so too Torah comes from a high place and goes to a very low place. So, ein mayim ela Torah. Water means, when we say water in Torah, means Torah. Therefore, this movement is understood as in Teda, but a state Mayim as his Eif Menam Eif Teda. So therefore, Teda says about Mayim is alluded to Teda. We're frightened and possible Bor Reik Ein Bei Mayim, especially when we say the Bor Reik that the pit is empty Ein Bei Mayim, there's no water. So before it's Medrash, the Medrash says as Da Retzich Vegin Teda. The Medrash says that when the pasuk says "V'habor reik im mayim," it's referring to Teda. Bar reik nisreikin beidah shel Yaakov, which means that the pit of Yaakov was completely empty. Ein by mayim, which means there was no water. Ein by divrei Teda shenimshul mayim. So the Medrash says that there was no water, which means there was no Teda there. Und das ist echt der Tam der Pirish Paprimi. In the Maimer Chazal, Mayim Ein Boy Al Menachoshem Akrav Nishboy. And this is also the inner explanation of when we say that there was no water, or there was Nechoshem Akrav. What does that mean? But Fatas the Medrash bring Beidi Pirushim. The Medrash says both Pshatim. The Medrash says number one, Mayim Ein Boy Al Menachoshem Akrav Nishboy. On base, Ein Boy Mayim Ein Boy Divrei Teda. V'Hamshiv Zalazeh. So obviously, the fact of that there was Nechoshem Akrav in there, and we're saying that there was no Divrei Teda, they have a connection one to another. In other words, b'shas mizamatziv for an ein by divrei Teda. When we're in a situation that there's no Teda, ein by mayim, there's no Teda, v'demela nechoshem akrav mishbay. So it's basically automatic. If there's no Teda, then there's going to be nechoshem akrav. Or is it takim and what's the situation? There's no in between. You can't say, okay, I don't want Teda, but I don't have the shtuyot in my head. It's hainohach. That says as the chesar of an ein by divrei Teda is nicht nerd. Das was is pust von Teda. But I can bleiben full mit Nyon Ereshus. Nor in sein Bar wer bemerach memela nechoshem akrav. Zachen was ein Hepech from Nagat Kedusha. So whatever it says, it's automatic. If a person doesn't have Mayim Teda, he has nechoshem akrav. There's no. Okay, there's three paths. There's the path of learning Teda. Then there's the path of just I'm neutral, and then there's the path of what's it called? Of shtusam. So the what he's saying is, the Rebbe is saying is that nechoshem akrav ein by. Thank you so much. What he's saying is that ein by divrei Teda, it's an automatic thing. If a person is not going to be filled with Teda, automatically he's going to have nechoshem akrav, which refer to the menagdim of kedusha. The Rebbe says like this. This is what the Baal Shem Tov says. Pasuk says Visartem va'avadatem. Over there he's speaking about in Shema. So the Baal Shem Tov says Kasher Odom Mafredes Atzmim Hashem Yisbarach. When a person is going to separate himself from Hashem, Meyad hu Eved Avodah Zarah, he's going to automatically serve Avodah Zarah. V'loi yesh davar motza. There's no in between, which is very extreme. So what does that mean? Visartem, and he's going to explain this. Visartem, if a person is going to be mastered from Hashem, automatically it's not like, okay, I'm taking a break from Hashem. No. Besides them, automatically it's going to be va'avadat. You're going to serve over the Zara. The Rit is mevor v'arvos Teda zok nit befirish as nechoshem akrav meishbei. That's why it's understood why the Torah does not say clearly that there was nechoshem akrav. Remember, lent this up. We're just letting it out from there. It says there's no water. It must be a nechoshem akrav. It's something which we don't have to specify. Nechoshem akrav meishbei is b'derech memela teitzof and mayim in, but it's automatic. If a person doesn't have Teda, automatically he's going to have the nechoshem akrav, and it's like the Baal Shem Tov says, v'sartem, it's automatically going to be v'avalim. When the fire bring their medrash, the tzvei pirushim in ein hemshel. That's why the medrash brings these two explanations as one continuation. Ein pirush is tolei, and was berfen tzveiten pirush. Each explanation is dependent on the other. Thus, as nechoshem akrav yesh boy, this that a person has, nechoshem akravim, it's because a person doesn't have water, which means ein by divrei Teda, he does not have the words of Teda. Since a person does not have Teda, so what happens? You come to start doing something which is hepech Teda, which was to mechiras Yosef, which was to mechiras Yosef. Now, Zog the Rebbe in Gimel, the Chelik and Mefregi, you can ask this. According to the Baal Shem Tov, who says, Visartem automatically, you're going to vavadatem, wasret, vegin dem etzem farbun, und vekas von jedem Neberstern, which is speaking about the essential connection that a Yid has with Hashem, is moving, as we know, Visartem, bekehrt sich ab von der Vekas von Neberstern, is a Shreina Inge von Hepech vavadatem. the minute that a person goes ahead and starts veering off from the dveikus of Hashem, automatically is the second that he starts veering off from Hashem, even a little bit, so you have automatically the vavadatem serving over the zara. However, in our case, what are we speaking about? We're speaking about that he doesn't have Teda. So as we balses and talking Teda, why are you being so extreme in saying that if a person doesn't have Teda, automatically he's going to go to the opposite? It's like,
in other words, the Saftan is more extreme.
All right, so V'sartim, you're doing something. You're actually doing V'sartim, you're actually doing a Pula, you're going away, so I understand, okay, V'avadatim. Here, what am I doing? It's like Shev al Taza. I'm not doing anything, I'm not learning, I'm not involved. I'm relaxing. Why do you have to go so extreme? You say, no, you have Nechoshem HaKrab. Other type of understanding you have to understand is you do as the Achi Yosef haben gehalten as Alpi Din is Yosef Mechuy Misa. The brothers held that Alpi Allah, it wasn't like a brother. They felt Alpi Allah, the way Yosef is acting, his ideology is mamish, she's Mechuy Misa. On the Medik, as Yosef is Luchol Misnakish B'nafshan Misa. They felt that Yosef is trying to go and kill them. So now that he is he's mastering and he's trying to kill them, so he's a din of a native. Under the time, he says they felt like the Mefarshim explain. If you look in the Rachaim over there, he gives all of this why Yosef, the brothers felt Api Allah, Yosef is a Mechuyev Misa. Hein verwazert the Mensch as durch them as they haben gewollt Hagen in Yosef is the Sreiken Berish Yaakov ein bei Divrei Torah. Was der Refon ist as mashma as ich wollte haben sich as schon nicht gerechnet mit Divrei Torah. Beis the items given up didn't Torah. Question is like this: the Medrash is saying that that through them wanting to kill Yosef, the pit of Yaakov was empty, which means there was no Divrei Torah. Which is mashma that they didn't hold of Torah, which in their minds, even though maybe al pipdin they were wrong, or they were for sure wrong, but they felt that Yosef deserved to die. So in other words, you're not, the mashal of V'sartim V'avatem is really not so similar here, because V'sartim, you're actually doing a pull, you do something here. First of all, you're not really doing anything, you're just staying status quo. And number two is that they didn't have Teda in their minds, they felt that he deserved to die. Gimel. So first, we'll understand this by first prefacing why does Chazal compare Torah to water. Torah is zugelichen, lekamet varim, lelechem, yayim, b'shem, and Torah is compared to various different aspects. You have sometimes the way Torah is compared to bread, you have Torah is compared to water or wine, you have Torah is compared to oil. Every single one of them expresses another part of what Torah is. You see, let's say lechem Torah, just like bread, satiates a person. Torah satiates a person. Wine, nichnasayin yatzasei. Torah brings out the say. Shemen, say especially chassidus, mfafeas kulei. So Torah, when you want to bring out different parts of Torah, it's compared to different foods. Now, werden dem Inya von Mayim in Torah Zaman Chazal. Now, in regards to water, Chazal say, and Al Rebbe brings us down in Tanya, why is Torah compared to water? To tell you, just like water comes from a very high place and goes down to a very low place, so the Torah is only going to last by a person. Torah will affect a person. Torah will be remembered by a person only when he is humble. That says, as mayim is nita dugma if etzim Torah, which means that water is not an example of the essential part of Torah, nor if the bittul v'shilvus ha'adam was fadazich by learning. It's only telling us the person how he has to be humble, just like the idea of water. Water comes from a high place, and it humbles itself to go to a low place. So to Torah will only be Mekayim by somebody who's like the idea of water being humble. Well, late them is for and thus was the Medrash Hanal Zog Nisreiken Beirish Yaakov. Now we could understand and we could explain. Well, the Medrash says that the pit of Yaakov was empty, and by the Torah there was no water. Warum by Zeis given Torah to Dinei Torah. They had Torah and they had halachos of Torah. says, they didn't have the water of Teda. What are we saying? There's no water. Look how much suggested. We're going to explain later on. They didn't have that humility, that bittul. Moving for the kriyas, so bittul ba'ad goshes and tefillas hamida. Like we see that when you have to bend by Shemon Esrei, as I say, there is kriya bebarak. First, the person bends by barak, v'zeke b'shein, and he stands up when he says Hashem's name. Aber, what's the din? Allah says, Hamelech, by a king, the Gemara says, even shekara, once a king bends, shuven zekev, he does not get up again. So, yeah, the water is on the, exactly. Ein b'mayim, which means, exactly. The simple shot is, ein b'mayim, you would think to Yosef. At Yosef, there was no water in Yosef's pit. But he's saying, ein b'mayim, the brothers did not have that humility that water has. Like you see by a king, that HaMelech, once he bends, he doesn't get up. In other words, they didn't have that bittul. Okay, fine. So it's a very.
What's the word in English?
By a metal there, I think the word is. So I think the word. So the din is like this: the Gemara in Bracha says is a regular person goes baruch, ata Hashem gets up. By a king, once the king has to have an extra bittul that he has to bend, and the whole Shemon Esrei doesn't get up. So the brothers, I guess pshat is that the brothers were at a state of a melech. They were. And they were lacking that ultimate bittul. Yes, they had Teda, and they had din Teda, but that bittul, that's what they were lacking, like the melech.
He had just like
that is
like a indicator, yeah.
I don't know if it's he's trying to bring it. A melech has to have a simple feathers. A melech has to have a status higher in bittul. They didn't have that. The brothers didn't have. Okay, so based on this, the above question now is stronger. We're explaining that the minute somebody does not have Teda, automatically he has the Choshev HaKravim, so them alein was by limud felt blows that bittul b'shiftless. So by inverting it says for the Choshev HaKravim, I'm menaked in kedusha. Just because somebody doesn't have the bittul, fine. Person is learning Torah. Okay, so he's a bagaybenik. He thinks highly of himself or whatever. He gets to his head. But you're saying that on a math, if a person doesn't have the mind, which we said is not Teda al Teda alein, but it's the bittul of Teda. So you're saying automatically that he has Nechoshev HaKravim by Teda. It's a little bit extreme, very extreme. Okay, hey, they're being them. So the explanation is as that ikur from Teda is as durch dem limud verbindt min sich mit neisen Teda. What's the idea of learning? Learning is that through learning a person connects with who? With the giver of the Teda. The neisen Teda. With the Rebbe is the Tanai from Bittul B'Shivos Tanai Ikri. So therefore, if the whole idea of Teda is that you're connecting with the neisen Teda, so if a person does not have that Bittul, it's a very big problem. It's a very essential condition in order to learn Teda, connecting with the neisen Teda. Calls man that man just ametzias farzich. Calls man that a person feels his own existence is enough mugder in the hagbolis for anivra when the fires and it was sugel to verbinden sich mit neisen Teda was es believable. Calls man that a person thinks highly of himself, that he considers himself metzias, so automatically he is limited to be. It's very technical. He is a nivra, which this nivra needs to connect with the neisen Teda, which is believable. So technically, he cannot connect with him. When the person who's learning is in a state of humility, he is so he goes out of his limitations. So he can connect after with the Neisen HaTeda. Now we can understand in Shemon Esrei we ask at the end, we say we say that let my soul be like dust to you, or like to everybody it should be dust. We ask that Hashem should open our hearts with Teda. Learning Torah, you have to have in a way of understanding. The person who just reads Gemara doesn't understand what he's saying. He's not Yetzel Limud Teda. What's a Shayich? Then Zayin Seichel B'chlal Zayin Kedah Stein in a Metzias. So, in order to understand, you have to be a kind of a metzias because I need to understand what's going on. Or v'nafshi ka'for la'kol tia. What does that mean? That my soul should be la'kol tia is shel u'mevatel zaymitzias. So we're saying that my soul should be like dust to everybody. Or sastira tzukofin says v'avona b'teira. So how does that mean? Saf libi b'seir secha. Sorry, v'nafshi ka'for la'kol tia. I should be like dust. And saf libi b'seir secha. It doesn't work. If you're like dust, then that means you have to forget about yourself. If you forget about yourself, then you have to forget about your own havana masala. He says this. Well, then, when could it be? When could you open my heart in your Torah, Shalachah, the Eibusher's Torah? When can I Zaina clean to Torah Shachadish Baruch versus building Mikbalas? When could you be a vessel, a receptacle to the Eibusher's Torah, which is bleed wool? Dafke dan. And by Eim is freer that the bittul mikol vikol. That's when you have the ultimate bittul, not stam bittul, not you have a regular bittul. Nor ka'afor lakol. Was a curl doshin love, your pasha bottle like everybody tramples on you. Then bittul, very then mukshur to mekabel zayin to nusher shalosh purpose through a person's bittul, he becomes now susceptible to be a mekabel the Eibusher's Torah. And enough comes your gaita, after you gias adam b'keach sichli, then comes the toil with the person's head. And after the nusher shalosh baruch there was an occasion of premium that a person could actually accept the Eibusher's Torah, understand the Eibusher's Torah in a way of psach libi b'seir zech. In other words, so v'nafshi ka'afor la'kol tia is a prerequisite in psach libi b'seir secha. When could a person actually attain the level of psach libi b'seir secha is only if he has the level of nafshi ka'afor la'kol tia. So there's a story that I heard once of Rabbi Ashkenazi over the phone, the real Chabad. The Rebbe told him once as a bocher, I think he had like a very hard time with Chabad. He's very like a genius, so he had a hard time with Chabad. He couldn't, no one can keep up with him. So the Rebbe, I think, told him once that the Rebbe told him that if you want to be successful in Psach Libi B'Seir Sefer, they just the Rebbe told him, so nafshi ka'afor la'kol tia, when you learn with somebody, when you accept from someone, when you hear somebody out, then you can have the ultimate level of Psach Libi B'Seir Sefer. Okay, so what we explained them in Hay is that when the ikar of Torah is to connect with the Neis and Torah, and therefore a person needs to have real bittul and shivlus to connect with the Neis and Torah, because if a person is going to stay in a nivra, as a nivra, he will not be able to connect with the belief wall. And now we can understand what does it mean when Ashi ka'afor la'kol tia b'sach libi b'seir secha. The is two opposite things. So because when a person is in the state of an Ashi ka'afor la'kol tia, then he get bizeta to the ultimate level of b'sach libi b'seir secha. Okay, both. The mids in Missing? Vov. Okay, der mit dem nicht verstehen, a dover zum Moa, was gefunden bei Limon Atera. But I know, as in deeper von Teda, is the Amaila Legabe Avodas Atera. Now, this we can understand, something which is very wondrous, which we find by Teda, we says that in regards to in deeper of Teda, there's a Maila in regards to Avodas Atera. What does that mean like this? The din is like this. The din is, there's Allah in Shulchan Aruch, the Alter Rebbe brings down, Simim Zayin, Siv Beis. The Alter Rebbe says, as a maharer be'ivri Torah, somebody who thinks the words of Torah, ein tzarech levarech b'chaz Torah. If a person wakes up in the morning, he washes negel basar, but he does not say brachas, let's say, he doesn't say, the Allah is, he's allowed to think divri Torah, ha-maharer be'ivri Torah, in tzarech levarech, he doesn't have to actually make b'chaz Torah. Why? The Allah is, v'al hirer loy kidibur domi. Because thinking is not considered as speaking. Or kol mashalem behir levad, anything. The halacha is that anything that a person learns just by contemplating about Torah, and the efshalei lahoitzi b'spasav, he's able to actually articulate the words ve'enim moitzi, and he does not. The halacha is en yosi b'limot zeh dichivosei mitzvahs ulamatim oisim. The Alter Rebbe writes in Hilchos Talmud Torah, in Perek Beis, Sif Yud Beis, the Alter Rebbe writes that if a person has the ability, he's thinking Torah, and he has the ability to articulate these words, and he does not, the halacha is, he is not Yotzeh, the mitzvah of limot of the Torah says in Matam Eisam, a person is not Yotzeh. Why? Because here, lav kidibur dami, le kidibur dami. No, maybe more. So the Havana from Torah is verbunden mit dem Dibur from Torah. To understand Torah is connected with actually Dibur, with articulating. Because Chazal Zogin, if a pasuk Chaim Heim in the Moitziayim, Chazal say over there, "Atiku l'moitzeim, elam l'moitzeim b'peh." To say it with your mouth. On arucha nitnar b'peh nor b'ramachiv varim shofar mishtameresh. It has to be with your 248 limbs. V'im lab, and if not, the halacha is einim mishtameres. If not, the Gemara says that it won't preserve. Right. So this is the This is what the Gemara says that. Right. It says that for they are your life for those who find them. And the Chazal say, don't learn to those who find them, but to those who express them. In other words, you have to express it with your mouth. Now, it says if it's arranged not only in the mouth, but it has to be arranged not only in your mouth, but in your 248 Evonim. So it says if it's arranged in your 248 Evonim, then it's secure. If not, it will not be secure. So that says the Vayeshev seemingly. Shas einer dat divrei Torah von Torah Shabbat Peh, und versteht nicht, was sagt. Allah is that if a person speaks Torah Shabbat Peh, he doesn't understand what he says, is a psak in the Shulchan Aruch, as einei neshel limud klal. When a person learns Torah Shabbat Peh, or says Torah Shabbat Peh, but doesn't understand what he's saying, so the halacha is, Shulchan Aruch says, ein neshel limud klal. It's not considered b'klal learning. Because it says, as the Indian alimut, by Torah Shabbat Peh, versteht in verstehen, das was verlernt. So what's the idea of learning? By Torah Shabbat Peh, you have to understand what you're saying. Hein for us is thereby as they negate the deeper from Torah. So if a person has to understand what he's saying, so why is it so negate that you should have deeper in Torah, you should have words in Torah, and not the kat even more. It's so much as if this felt, you're saying if the deeper lacks in Torah, is loy die was in tzarich levarich, is niet yitzidich chayvas mitzvahs l'mata meisen orich ein emeshtameres. You're saying that not only is a person in tzarich levarich, and not only is it not yitzidich l'mata meisen, but you know what? The Torah will not be secure for you. I feel that which means that even to retain his comprehensive of Torah, that's also not, he doesn't get that. And the question is, why not? So the Rebbe says like this, Zayin, is the Hasbara in them, the explanation is as follows. Kanal, that Ikar for limit from Torah is der Verbund, was mahat durch Torah mit den Nizna Torah. What's Torah? Torah is, limud Torah means you're connecting with the Nizna Torah. When they're far, muzah their limud Torah, Zayin in Anefin, as the Avona of Asago from the Minyan is, and therefore, when a person learns Torah, so the way he understands Torah has to be nit is mitzad geda seichel from the nivra. Not only the way that mitzad, the way Hashem created the nivra, the seichel. Okay? Seichel means he has to understand. Nor because it's mitzad Hakadosh Baruch Hu, it has to be mitzad Hashem, which is Torah. So is Torah the Torah of Hakadosh Baruch Hu, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. So therefore, as movement it's understood as is nit maspik the tnuah from bitul blaze al takadam mitzvah Torah. So it's not enough only to have this tnuah of bitul as a prerequisite for the Mater nerd. They're learning alein muzan and from being bittul. So in the beginning, we're saying that as a prerequisite to learn Torah, you have to have bittul. He says even more so that the learning itself has to be in the way of bittul. On their riber was there limud zayin and from the Vayeshev and bepeh biz arucha b'ramachivarim. Therefore, the Torah has to be in a way of he has to express it with his mouth and even order in your 248 devarim, which means like this. When a Yid learns Torah using his cognitive and intellectual faculties, the hechste milas from the mention, which is the highest milas of a person. Why noch in sein Metzias, he's still remaining in his Metzias als Mensch, nit koil sein to das Shakadish Baruch Hu. He's not going to be able to actually absorb Hashem's Torah. When we call it Shekhem V'Kal Fun Pila Da'ayil B'Kuba D'Machta, and this is like a Kal V'Chemer from the, like we say, the Gemara says the impossibility of an elephant going through the eye of a needle. It's only that could be done in a dream, but to imagine an elephant going in the eyes of the needle is impossible. Madach Apil, Madach a elephant, which an elephant it's large, but it's limited. When that's vegan, nevertheless, he says Kupa D'Machta is kleiner from him, since the eye of a needle is obviously smaller than the elephant. Is a Ganzen abgefragt as so can eingehen in Kupa D'Machta. So it's obviously it's not even a question that the eye, that the elephant can go on the eye of the needle. B is asking about vices, and therefore, like the Gemara says, they don't even show you this in a dream because it's not shaykh. So on the more so, Teda, which is connected with Hashem, which is Shashuya Melech Batz Musi, which is the toy of Hashem, the Blik Vul Amiti, which is the Blik Vul, Kenzi Dochavad in the Danayim, and it was buried in them Seichel for non-Adam, so it's impossible for the Eberster, which is unlimited, to enter and grasp in the intellect of a finite, and limited person. What the Eber is, therefore, the Torah is not secure. They can nit haben ken kiyum bayim v'erstet in zayin agbalas. It will not leave a lasting impression for him at all. When the Gemara itself dart as Talmud Echad shayishene balachas shachach tamidi. As the Gemara says over there, that there was a student who would study quietly and forget his learning. However, when you connect the Torah in a way of with your mouth, he's learning in a way of with his mouth, or noch niedriger mit namachi bonim with all his 248 limbs, but his side niedriger from seichel, which are lower than seichel, milas adam. It says the limbs and aifen as jed malasi onem dur seine alle namachi bonim is mevatel zayin metzius, which means at Torah, he learns Torah, it permeates all his 248 limbs and nullifies his existence. Dafke demot continuously shadolish baruch built in mugbelas by him niklat veren and apnimis trasim mishtamesh. Dafke then could Torah, which is unlimited, can be absorbed inwardly in Torah and then secure. Okay, let's do one more. Okay, we'll put that for time, or should we stop here? Should we stop? Okay, we'll stop here. We'll continue this tomorrow.